Hey everyone. So, a listener wrote in and asked about common programming habits that can actually hold you back.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, and we found this awesome article called Programming Habits That Are Holding You Back, and we thought it would be cool to do a deep dive
Yeah,
into it, see what we can learn.
absolutely.
Yeah, so whether you're just starting out or you're like a seasoned coder,
Hmm.
I think there's always something new to learn, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about this whole topic
What's it that?
is that programming, it's not just about
Yeah.
knowing like the syntax or the latest framework.
Right.
It's really the mindset and the habits you bring to the table.
Oh, interesting.
That can have a huge impact, on everything.
Okay.
Like how clean your code is,
Sure.
how well you work with others, and honestly, even your career.
Wow.
It's bigger than just the code itself.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's get into it. So this first habit, the article talks about it,
Mhm.
neglecting version control.
No.
Okay, I know I've been guilty of this one in the past.
Yeah.
Saving a million versions of the same file.
Right, right.
Like final, really final this time.
Oh, yeah, totally, totally.
You know what I mean? I've been there.
We've all been there.
But picture this. You're working with a teammate
Okay.
on, let's say, a website, different parts of the code. And without version control, you're emailing files back and forth, trying to merge changes. It's a nightmare waiting to happen.
It's a mess.
It is. But with a system like Git, you're both working on your own branches. You're tracking every single change.
Oh, okay.
And you can merge them seamlessly when you're ready. No more lost work, no conflicting edits.
That sounds amazing.
It's like a safety net for your project.
It's so true. I actually remember this one time I lost like hours of work
Oh, no.
because I wasn't using version control. And, it was a painful lesson.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. Yeah. And the article really dives into this, like using Git effectively.
Yeah.
You got to commit frequently, with clear messages so you can see what changed and why.
Right.
And branching out for new features so you can experiment without breaking anything.
Gotcha.
There's definitely a learning curve. But
Yeah.
once you get it, it's such a powerful tool.
Okay, so Git is our friend.
Git is our friend.
No more of those final v12 actually final.py files all over the place.
Exactly.
Okay, so the next habit, avoiding code reviews.
Hmm.
I have to say, I get a little nervous when I think about someone looking at my code.
I totally get that.
Well,
It's a little intimidating.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way. But here's the thing.
Okay.
What if we shifted our perspective and thought about it as a learning opportunity
Oh, okay.
instead of judgment?
Yeah.
It's like, having another pair of eyes to catch those errors you might have missed.
Right. That makes sense. And it's such a great way to learn from other developers, maybe some with more experience, and pick up those best practices you might not have thought of.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if you approach it with, the right mindset,
Mm-hmm.
those code reviews can actually be really valuable.
Totally.
The article also mentioned some tips like using tools to streamline the process
Right.
and, making sure you have the right attitude going in. Have you had any experience with that?
Absolutely. There are some amazing tools out there that can really help manage those code reviews
Cool.
and make the whole thing more efficient. But honestly, the most important thing is that attitude
Yeah.
you bring to the table. Like instead of getting defensive when you get feedback,
Hmm.
try to see it as a gift, a chance to improve and learn something new.
Oh, I like that. A gift.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to warm up to this whole code review thing.
Okay.
So let's talk about, honestly, something that doesn't always get me super excited.
Okay. What's that?
Documentation. I get it, it's important,
It is.
but sometimes it just feels like a chore.
I hear you, but I want you to think about this for a second.
Okay.
Have you ever tried to understand a piece of code that you wrote like months ago
Oh, yeah.
and had no idea how it worked?
Oh, it's the worst.
It's like reading a foreign language, right?
Totally.
Well-documented code. It's like having a conversation with your past self
Okay.
or other developers who might be working on your code later on.
Right.
It's about making your code readable,
Mm-hmm.
understandable, maintainable, and honestly, in the long run,
Yeah.
it saves everyone so much time and headaches.
So it's more of an investment than a chore.
Exactly.
Okay. And the article suggested using clear names, writing helpful comments, and keeping those readme files up to date.
All great advice. Imagine you're building a house.
Okay.
You wouldn't just start nailing boards together without a blueprint.
No, definitely not.
Documentation is like the blueprint for your code. It provides the context and guidance that you need.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great analogy. I'm starting to see documentation in a whole new light.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, let's move on to this next habit, over-engineering.
Okay.
Now, I have definitely been guilty of this one, like trying to build the most complex solution, even when it's not necessary.
Oh, we've all been there. It's like packing for a weekend trip. Pack your
Yeah.
entire wardrobe.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Just in case, right?
Literally.
But in the code world, it often leads to just like unnecessary complexity.
Right.
Makes it harder to understand, harder to maintain, harder to debug.
Yeah, it's like building this like crazy Rube Goldberg machine just to turn on a light.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the article talks about this principle called yaigi.
Gotcha.
You ain't gonna need it.
Oh, okay.
It's basically a reminder to focus on what you need right now,
Okay.
not what you might need in some future hypothetical situation.
Right.
Start simple, solve the immediate problem, then refactor and expand as needed.
Gotcha.
Over-engineering just slows things down, makes your code more fragile.
So it's about finding that balance between like building something robust but not getting lost in all that unnecessary complexity.
You got it. Don't build a cathedral when a simple cabin will do.
I love that. Okay, what's the next habit on our list?
Well, let's see. Let's talk about neglecting testing. I know writing tests can sometimes feel like a chore, especially when you're eager to just get the code working, but trust me, it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. You get so focused on making the code function that testing feels like an afterthought, but I'm guessing that's come back to bite me more than once.
It's all too easy to think, well, it works on my machine, but what happens when someone else tries to use your code where you make changes later on? Without tests, you're basically flying blind. You might introduce bugs without even realizing it.
So it's about having that safety net, that assurance that your code actually does what it's supposed to do even as it evolves over time.
Precisely. Think of it like this. You're building a bridge. Would you just assume it's safe to drive over without testing its strength and stability first? Of course not. Tests are like those stress tests for your code. They help you identify weak points and potential failures early on so you can fix them before they become major problems.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The article talks about different types of tests, like unit tests and integration tests. Can you break that down for me a little?
Sure. Unit tests focus on testing small, isolated parts of your code, like individual functions or methods. It's like checking that each individual brick in your bridge is strong enough. Integration tests, on the other hand, look at how different parts of your code work together. They're testing the overall structure and ensuring that all the pieces fit together properly.
So unit tests are like checking the individual components, while integration tests are like seeing if the whole bridge can actually support the weight of a car.
You got it. And the beauty of automated testing is that you can run these tests quickly and easily whenever you make changes to your code. It's like having a robot constantly checking your work for you.
That sounds pretty handy. The article also mentions a habit that I think a lot of us have been guilty of at some point: copying and pasting code without really understanding it.
Ah, the Stack Overflow copy-paste dilemma.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right? You're struggling with a problem and you find a code snippet online that seems to do exactly what you need. But here's the danger. If you don't take the time to really understand that code, you could be introducing bugs, security vulnerabilities, or even violating licenses without realizing it.
It's like borrowing someone's car without knowing how to drive it. You might be able to get it moving, but you're probably going to crash eventually. So how do we break this habit?
Treat copied code as a learning opportunity. Instead of just blindly pasting it in, take the time to dissect it. What does each line do? How do the different parts fit together? Can you simplify it or make it more efficient? The goal is to understand the code so well that you could have written it yourself.
That's a great approach. It turns a potential shortcut into a chance to actually improve your skills. Okay, what about this next habit? Ignoring performance considerations. I'll admit, I sometimes get so focused on making the code work that I don't always think about how efficiently it runs.
It's easy to fall into that trap, especially when you're working on smaller projects. But imagine you're building a website that thousands of people will use simultaneously. If your code is inefficient, the site could be slow and unresponsive, leading to a frustrating user experience.
So even if the code technically works, it might not be working well enough to meet the needs of the users.
That's exactly. Performance optimization is about finding that balance between functionality and efficiency. You don't want to spend hours prematurely optimizing code that doesn't need it, but you also don't want to completely ignore performance and end up with a slow, clunky application.
So how do we find that sweet spot?
The article talks about understanding basic algorithmic complexity, which helps you assess how the performance of your code will scale as the amount of data grows. There are also profiling tools that can help you identify bottlenecks in your code. It's about knowing which parts of your code are the most critical for performance and focusing your optimization efforts there.
So it's not just about making the code work, it's about making it work well. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a habit that's particularly relevant in the tech world. Not staying up to date with new technologies. I know the landscape is constantly changing, which can feel overwhelming at times.
It's definitely a challenge. It's like trying to keep up with fashion trends. What's hot today might be out of style tomorrow. But in the tech world, falling behind can have a real impact on your career prospects and your ability to build cutting-edge applications.
So how do we avoid becoming tech dinosaurs?
It's about making continuous learning a part of your routine. The article suggests setting aside time each week to explore new technologies, read articles and tutorials, follow industry leaders on social media, and maybe even experiment with new languages or frameworks in your free time.
So it's about cultivating that curiosity and that desire to keep learning and growing. It doesn't have to be a chore either. It can be fun to explore new technologies and see what's possible.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that I think is often overlooked in technical discussions.
Yeah.
The importance of soft skills.
This is a big one. You can be the most brilliant coder in the world, but if you can't communicate effectively, work well with others, or solve problems collaboratively, you're going to hit a ceiling in your career. So it's not just about what you know, it's about how you work with others and how you communicate your ideas.
Exactly. Imagine you're working on a complex project with a team of developers. You need to be able to explain your code clearly, give and receive constructive feedback during code reviews, and work together to solve problems efficiently.
It's like being a musician in an orchestra. You might be a virtuoso on your instrument, but if you can't play in harmony with the rest of the orchestra, the music won't sound good.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And the good news is that soft skills can be learned and developed just like technical skills.
Yeah.
The article suggests practicing explaining technical concepts to non-technical people, actively participating in team discussions, and maybe even considering courses or books on communication and leadership.
It's about recognizing that programming isn't just a solitary activity. It's a collaborative field that requires strong interpersonal skills to be truly successful. Okay, what's the next habit on our list?
All right, so welcome back for the last part of our deep dive into these programming habits. We've covered a lot of ground, right, from version control. Yeah, we have.
To documentation, testing, even soft skills?
Yeah, and it's amazing when you think about how it all connects to, like, the bigger picture.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, all of these habits we've been talking about, they're not just about the individual programmer. You know,
Right.
they have this ripple effect across, like, teams, projects, even a whole tech industry.
Oh, wow. Okay, so how do they impact things on that, like larger scale?
Okay, well, imagine a software company where everybody, like, really prioritizes those good habits, right? They're using version control like it's second nature. They've got clear documentation. They're testing their code thoroughly. They're constantly learning, improving their skills. What do you think happens?
I mean, I'm guessing they're probably putting out like really high quality software, fewer bugs, smoother development process.
It's like building a house.
Oh,
If you use good materials, you follow the blueprint carefully, that house is going to be strong. It's going to last for years. But if you cut corners and you neglect the foundation,
yeah.
the whole thing's going to fall apart eventually.
Oh, so these habits are kind of like building that solid foundation
Exactly.
for the whole tech industry.
Yeah, and think about it in terms of innovation.
Okay.
When you have those good habits ingrained, it gives you the confidence to, like, experiment, try new things.
Push the boundaries.
Yeah, push the boundaries because you've got that safety net of tests and version control.
Oh, so you're not afraid to like break things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where, platforms like Algo Academy are so cool.
Mhm.
They give you that safe space to learn, practice these skills, and that ultimately it feeds back into the industry,
Right.
helps everyone grow and innovate.
So it's like a training ground, kind of.
Yeah, I like that training ground.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you, out of all these habits we talked about, which one like really resonated with you the most? And what's like one small step you can take maybe today?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, to start incorporating it.
Maybe it's finally committing to using version control for all your projects.
Okay.
Or maybe you set aside like 30 minutes a day just to read about a new technology, try a new skill.
I like that.
Even those small changes can really add up.
Yeah, it's like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's true.
Building these good programming habits, it's a journey. It's not a destination.
Exactly.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun.
Yeah, have fun along the way, definitely.
Programming is an awesome field.
It is.
And by building these good habits, you're not only becoming a better programmer, but you're also helping to make like the whole tech world a more innovative, exciting place.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you learned something new, and we hope you feel inspired to keep leveling up your programming game.
Keep leveling up.
That's it for today, and we'll see you next time.